There is no way that car is getting entered in a NASCAR stock car race. They have rules.
Yeah.
All the cars are built, or supposed to be built, around the same. They're not letting the Volkswagen Beetle in the race.
It's not happening.
It's just not happening. Hello and welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List. And this week, I've got a need for speed. We didn't even rehearse that. Didn't even talk about that. Didn't rehearse that. Nothing. That was first take right there. I didn't even tell him to do that. Nothing.
We are cruising along right now. This is great.
And you ruined it. And you ruined it. We were there. We were good. We were riding high. And so this week, this is a good week. I like this week because movie Gran Turismo is coming out here this weekend. Not only that, the NASCAR regular season championship is wrapping up here this Saturday. Big time period for motorsports. If I had to describe myself with two qualities, it'd be movies and motorsports.
Okay.
This week we're going to talk about them both.
Now, let me ask you this.
Good week to be Nick.
When you say motorsports, does that include like dirt biking and stuff?
Yeah, it can.
Is that included in the motorsport, or is that kind of its own separate thing?
If there is a motor and you are competing in a sport,
then it is.
Then it's motorsports.
So like Red Bull airplanes, that'd be motorsports?
That's more aerial competition, I feel like.
Okay. Just curious. Don't know.
Do you
much
have
about,
Do you have a plane movie you want to talk about, or why are we going down this route? Are you just wasting my time?
Motorsports.
I got nothing this afternoon.
Yeah.
You got something you got to do after this. However long we sit down here is up to you.
Good point. Good point. Next topic.
Anyways, so this is a good week for me. This is some of my favorite stuff here. Motorsports and movies. I decided to break this down into essentially three categories here, because I'm pretty much going to be taking the bulk here. We're not going to necessarily be doing kind of the back and forth we usually do. Unfortunately, It's just one of those weeks. Yep. Whenever we talk about horror movies, you kind of take the ball on that one. Whenever we talk about racing movies, I take the ball on this one. It's just how it's going to work here. So I broke it down into three kind of general categories here, and I'm going to talk about some of my favorites in each. Nonfiction racing movies, ones that are kind of based or loosely based on true stories, fiction movies, and then just to kind of wrap it up, there's a few comedic ones. Ones for the whole family to maybe sit down and enjoy together. So let's get right into it. Let's start with some real-life stuff. Gran Turismo is coming out here. That one is based off a true story as well. We'll get more into that later on in the episode here, but I figured that'd be a good place to start. And probably one of the best places to start is at the start-finish line.
Ooh.
Anyways, let's get into the movie Rush. This is considered to be one of the probably best all-around motorsports movies in general here. Directed by Ron Howard.
Great director.
Depending on how you know him as, that may be a surprise. True. But yeah, he does have a pretty good resume as a director here. But it also stars Chris Hemsworth, probably best known as Thor, Olivia Wilde, as well as Daniel, and maybe you can help me with the pronunciation here, Daniel Bruhl. He's the guy who plays Zemo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They play two F1 drivers in this heated rivalry. I'll admit, out of all the motorsports, I'm not as familiar, or I don't follow F1 as much. It is very competitive. It is a very international sport.
Yeah.
It is generally kind of known that they don't like American drivers and kind of encroaching on that territory. That's kind of been a thing these past few years. That being said, a fantastic movie. Great story. Great action.
And didn't they say, wasn't there an F1 race in the United States? Wasn't it in, Detroit?
Yes. Okay, so F1, they travel around the world, and they try to have, one big Grand Prix in as many countries as they have. They usually have, a 20-race season. The last few years, they've had it in Miami.
Okay.
But they've had an F1 race all over the place because they could never really find a spot that stuck.
Yeah.
They tried to have it in Las Vegas, but here's how weird F1 can be. They had the race in the Caesars Palace parking lot.
Yeah.
The parking lot's big enough where they were able to make a track out of it.
That's
where
wild.
Yeah. F1 is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
kind of crazy in that way. But yeah, recently it's been set in Miami here these last few years. But yeah, it really is kind of the top echelon here. That's why I kind of wanted to lead with this one.
Yeah.
Like I said, in the non-fiction kind of category here, because it is based off 2 real-life drivers whose names escape me at this moment here, but everyone knows Chris Hemsworth. I think this, I'm going to double-check my notes here, this might have been right around or even before Thor came out. Nope. Okay, 2013. So yeah, Thor had just come out the year before.
Okay, yep.
Stardom is really starting to take off here for this guy. Also, nonfiction here. You kind of alluded to it. We were talking beforehand here. Another big one, Ford v Ferrari. Just came out a couple years ago. I know you've seen this one. We saw this one at the theater here. So I'll throw it to you. What did you think of Ford v Ferrari?
I really enjoyed it because I personally didn't know the history kind of with, I'd heard of the Le Mans race. I've heard of the Shelby. I've heard of the Cobra. I've heard of those things, but I didn't necessarily have a face to put them with. And this movie dives directly into that and the Ford Motor Company and kind of how it operated back then and what its kind of views on like the sport racing was. But I thought, Matt Damon was awesome. Christian Bale is that his normal accent?
It's probably got to be one of the closest he's ever gotten to his regular accent in that movie.
I loved that because like so many people don't know that. He's Welsh.
Yeah, he is Welsh.
Yes. So him speaking without an accent is him speaking with an accent.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome. It's great.
Yeah, I'm a big Chevy guy, so as I was watching that movie, I was cheering against Ford, even though I knew they were going to win at the end of that. I was cheering for Ferrari for most of that movie and that.
That's
Ford
all right.
Ferrari. But you know what? Hey, Ford sucks this year in NASCAR, so I'll take it where I can.
Is that different than any other year? Or
sometimes,
are they pretty good?
Sometimes they are. No, they've had it's been an off year for them recently here. Anyways, I'm not going to get too into the weeds in this. One last one I want to just kind of throw out here that doesn't really have to do so much with cars, but like we kind of alluded to earlier, if it has a motor and it is sort of competition, I think it's worth mentioning here. The World's Fastest Indian. I've maybe talked about this movie on this channel before. This is an Anthony Hopkins movie that came out a while ago, and it's based off of the true story of a New Zealander, an old man at the time. He basically rebuilt from like the ground up this old motorbike of his and sort of reconfigured it so that he could break the land speed record with it way back in the 1960s.
Oh, cool.
So he was a New Zealander. He made his way over to America. There's the Salt Flats in Utah, I think is what they're called. It's this long stretch of just flat ground. Yeah. So they have this event every once in a while where people will come, they'll race, test speeds, all that. And here he was able to somehow just get the money together to come over to America with his little truck and mini trailer that barely held on his bike and was able to break the land speed record. Really good movie. Anthony Hopkins is great in everything he's in. So that's sort of an honorable mention here in this nonfiction category.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's take a quick minute here to talk about the Marshall 6 Theater here in Marshall, Minnesota. We have entered the month of August, which means we still have one more good month of movies here to look forward to. Be sure to check out their website for showtimes for the biggest blockbusters, and also check out maybe some past ones, whether you want to watch them again, or if you still need to catch up on a few, be sure to check out their website for showtimes. Also, they are hiring, so make sure that if you're a high school student or a returning college student and you need a little extra cash and want the opportunity to check out movies for free, be sure to check that out here at the Marshall 6 Theater website here in Marshall, Minnesota.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
But let's move into fiction. Sometimes fiction is even crazier than nonfiction. Or no, other way around. Sometimes nonfiction is crazier than fiction. I don't know. It depends on the day.
It's all crazy sometimes.
It depends on the day sometimes. But let's talk about some of my personal favorite racing movies that deal with fiction. We mentioned Ford v Ferrari and the Le Mans race. There is a very early movie called Le Mans that starred Steve McQueen back in the day. And it basically talks about the 24 hours of Le Mans way back in the day.
Yep.
And even though the story itself is fiction, they filmed it, and even some of actual racing footage from the 1970 race is featured in this movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. And it's actually something that may or may not have inspired one of the other movies that we're going to talk about here as well. But I mainly wanted to bring this up because of Steve McQueen. He was a big car guy. Bullet is another one we probably could have put on this list as well. But there's not as much competition in that one. But yeah, I think the 24-hour Le Mans, it's one of the reason why we keep bringing it up in this discussion is because it is one of the most endurance, toughest races out there, truly. And it's really where you can kind of claim manufacturer superiority with that. And it was kind of cool to see that even way back in like the 1970s, people were kind of putting a spotlight on that race. But another one I do want to talk about here, another one that you also did allude to, you had seen before, Days of Thunder.
Yep.
This is one that I could talk everyone's ears off about this movie. I grew up with this movie. I still am a huge NASCAR fan. This was a huge NASCAR movie. There had been NASCAR movies before this, but they were either sort of comedic or they didn't have quite a big budget. Whatever reason. This was possibly one of the biggest, like, big budget. I mean, you had huge star power with Tom Cruise behind this and everything. And also featured a lot of real race footage. If you want to know how crazy NASCAR used to be back in the day, basically what they did to do this was, because the rules of entering a race car are a little, I don't want to say it's not easy to get in back then, but literally they were able to build race cars that had camera implants in them, enter them in the race. They had to qualify for the race, and then they would send them out there and they would just be recording. But the thing is because the cameras back then aren't the cameras we have today, they could only record about 10 minutes of footage. So they would send these two cars out there. They'd go out for like 10 laps or whatever, come in, switch out film, send it back out there. And there was one story I heard, there was a car one time that they built for the movie that qualified really, really well. And they're like, this car may have a chance to win. So they actually took out all the filming equipment and made it like an official car and like sent it out there to compete. It blew an engine about halfway through.
Oh, no.
But that's how crazy NASCAR was at the time. And Hendrick Motorsports was a huge part of this movie. But you said you had seen this one. So I want to hear your thoughts on this one as well.
I had seen this movie many years ago when I was a kid. And at that time, I didn't really even know. Well, I was really young, but I didn't know like Tom Cruise was like a big star. I thought he was just just another movie guy that's on TV. But no, I do remember some of the scenes, some of the crashes. I do remember seeing some of those. And then I just, like you said, I previously watched the trailer to kind of refresh it, see if it brings back anything. And there were some funny lines in the. So if you get a chance, before you watch it, check the trailer out.
I feel like I got to rewatch the trailer.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever watched the trailer. I just saw the movie.
Yeah,
I just had a VHS copy at home.
Oh yeah, that was probably it. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, this was the movie that I think really put NASCAR in a better perspective here, and also the 90s was probably one of the peak times for the sport, and that may or may not have kind of started with this too. So I don't know, go and
thanks Tom Cruise.
Yeah, thanks Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
from all of us here and all of us NASCAR fans, make Days of Thunder 2.
You
already did Top Gun Maverick 2. Might as well do Days of Thunder 2.
That would be actually pretty cool. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And he would learn. I'm sure he's a great driver, a good stunt driver, but I'm sure he would be even better now.
Oh, I think he does still keep up with it.
Does he? Okay.
I think I do remember reading he does still keep up with it a little bit. And there was even an interview, because he did Top Gun in mid-1980s, and then he was starting to do with this one. He was like, obviously this dude in real life actually does have a need for speed and everything. But I think he was talking about in an interview, he was like, flying in a fighter jet is fun and everything, but in a car, it's a constant battle. And if you actually... Okay, just going to get on my soapbox here. Since we're talking racing movies, I'm going to defend my favorite sport here for a second. Okay. It is not just going around in circles turning left. It is not. It is a constant battle. You have to keep as straight of a line as you can in some moments to keep your momentum going and everything. It's not just a left turn. Some tracks you have to brake a little bit more. Some you have to brake a little bit less. You have to approach your angle correctly. If there's other people around you, you have to change up your strategy and everything and how you're going to enter and everything. There's aerodynamics everywhere. You got over 40 cars going at 200 miles an hour. Air's going to be going crazy around you. So you have to constantly be on the wheel, holding on to it for dear life, essentially. And if even a little bit of you gets out of shape, if you don't fix it right away or fix it overcorrecting and everything, that's a big thing people talk about in driver's ed. You know, people talk about that when you're going 30 miles an hour down the highway. Okay, times that by like 10, and now you have to also figure out how to do that without other people hitting you and everything. Okay, soapbox over. I could go even longer into that, but I'm keeping myself in control here. I'm trying to keep myself short and sweet and not ramble too much. But one last one I just want to talk about here for fiction movies that does deal with racing, Death Race.
Ooh.
No, I'm not talking about the 1975 one, although we could talk about the 1975 one.
Yeah.
That movie is too dark in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
They run over hospital people.
Yeah.
Oh, they run over the elderly for
It was
points.
the 70s, man.
It was the 70s. But anyways, yeah, I'm not going to talk about the 1970s one because that one is pretty dark. This is the one with Jason Statham, came out in the late 2000s, I want to say, about prison. And you got to be a pretty dark movie if I'm saying the one about you being a prisoner in the Death Race is the lighter of the two movies.
Lighter of the two.
But for those of you who have not seen this or have not heard us talk about it before, picture Mario Kart, but deadlier.
But deadlier and all like prison inmates.
Yeah.
Yep.
Essentially, all these inmates, they are in these tricked out cars with weapons, but to activate the weapons, you have to run over essentially power-ups. It's literally like Mario Kart. And then like a system will allow you, you can activate your shields now so that somebody else is shooting at you. And the winner of the race gets like amnesty or whatever. It's kind of like Suicide Squad. Also, I guess if you think about it.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. Was Amanda Waller running these races? I feel like that's a DC Universe confirmed right there. But let's end this discussion here. Let's talk about some fun ones. A lot of these are serious. I think sports in general, especially in the movies, are a serious topic. You have tough competition and everything. But let's have a little fun here. Some racing movies that I think are comedic. Fun ones to check out here.
There are a few.
I'm going to talk about one of the oldest ones here, and I feel like people know of this movie or this character, but they don't know how many movies there actually was in this series. The Love Bug, also known as Herbie. I have actually had a friend, had a conversation with a friend, because I, growing up in a racing family, we discovered the Love Bug movies, but a lot of people rediscovered them with Herbie Fully Loaded in the Lindsay Lohan movie in the mid-2000s. Did you know that was the 6th movie?
No idea.
There were more Herbie movies. There were as many Herbie movies as Star Wars movies at that point.
No idea.
There's 4 theatrical ones. There was a 5th one that I think was straight to TV.
Okay.
And then I believe there was the 6th one.
See, and talking about this, I knew there was for sure an original one, and then I thought Herbie Fully Loaded was the second one. That they're like, hey.
No, there's plenty of adventures this little Volkswagen Beetle has gone through here. The Love Bug came out back in 1975, and that one kind of dealt with sort of a different racing scene that was kind of going on in America at that time. NASCAR had been around for a couple decades at that point, but it hadn't hit its popularity in the 80s. Yeah. It was kind of like right at late 1970s into the 80s that it like blew up as the major motorsport of America. So you had a lot of these races where you can kind of just enter whatever car you wanted, and it was a lot of road course races and a lot of these races out on the West Coast and everything, which is why they were able to get away with this Volkswagen Beetle in this race.
Yeah.
And in some of the other movies where he's also involved in these races. That's a problem I have with Herbie Fully Loaded. There is no way that car is getting entered in a NASCAR stock car race. They have rules.
Yeah.
All the cars are built, or supposed to be built, around the same. They're not letting the Volkswagen Beetle in the race.
It's not happening.
It's just not happening. Back then, though, during these other movies, that was okay.
Yeah.
Not all of them are about racing. The first one, The Love Bug, is. Second one is not, but it's still kind of fun.
Yep.
The third one is the one where it was a famous race back in the day where they would race essentially from Paris to Monte Carlo. So it was a lot of road racing and everything. So that's what the third one's about. And I think that TV one was kind of a racing one as well. But yeah, that's kind of a fun racing movie that, there's a lot of options out there for people.
There's a lot of options.
Last one I want to talk about here, Cannonball Run. Burt Reynolds was involved with a lot of car movies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of car movies, including some racing ones. I think I've talked about Stroker Ace in the past in this.
Yeah.
But another one he was involved in was Cannonball Run. This one was a little bit more comedic slapstick, but also it was like a cross-country road race movie where it was just a bunch of kind of wacky characters. That's really all I got to say about it.
Yeah. Well, and like the real Cannonball Run is kind of the same thing. It's kind of, you got some goofy people doing goofy things, and it's wild.
Yep.
It's wild.
Do we want to talk about Talladega Nights?
We probably should. It's like the biggest
It is
in recent memory.
But from a NASCAR fan's perspective, I could talk for about an hour about the inaccuracies and how wrong this movie is.
You mean driving backwards to finish the race and then running?
Believe it or not, that is not one of them.
Yeah.
That is not. I don't have a problem with him finishing the race backwards. That happens every once in a while.
Yeah.
What was wrong with that scene is the two leaders spun out in front of everyone. They would have thrown the caution and the race would have just been over.
It's been done.
They would not have just let two cars are at a standstill on the front stretch. The caution would have come out.
Yeah.
No, NASCAR doesn't care where your car is pointing when you cross the start-finish line, just so long as you cross the start-finish line. But, I mean, Days of Thunder was a big one in the 90s that kind of brought people to the racing scene.
Mm-hmm.
Talladega Nights kind of did as well, but it did so sort of making fun of the redneck stereotype a little bit.
I'll say it definitely brought more awareness to NASCAR, but it might not have been the awareness that they wanted.
That is a really good way to put it. I'm glad you said that, not me, because it sounds like I'm just crying and moaning if I say it.
No, because I saw it and I thought it was hilarious. And
it is funny.
I enjoyed it. I actually looked into a little bit more of NASCAR, but I could definitely tell, like, if this was your job or and it's like, ooh, they're really roasting us right now.
Yeah. Some of it's warranted. Some of it's not.
Yep.
But, yeah, let's... we got to wrap up because if I keep talking about Talladega Nights, maybe I'll just make a whole ranting.
There you go.
I did have a conversation with a friend where they were like asking about the end of that movie, and they'd be like, "So who would have actually won that race?" And I had to like actually think about it, and I came up with 3 scenarios, and none of those 3 scenarios did Cal Naughton win. Yeah, sorry to say.
That's when they got out of their cars and ran. Yeah,
I'll maybe do a video essay on that sometime.
All right,
I don't know.
All right.
But let's move on here to the weekly preview, talking about what's coming up here in the near future. Kicking things off here is Gran Turismo, a motorsports movie.
Now I'm confused. I know this is based off a video game and based on a true story. How does that work?
All right, so I did have to look into this a little bit as well. So there was an actual competition where people who have these like full driving simulator kind of setups would, I guess, essentially audition or try out, actually, sports terminology, let's say the word try out here. And it was these kids, these people who were playing video games, but in this day and age especially, these driver simulators and some of the video game components are so accurate that it's actually something NASCAR drivers and a lot of other motorsports drivers are using today to practice. So looking at NASCAR against especially, they don't have as much practice time on the track like they used to. So throughout the week, a lot of them will use what's called iRacing, which is essentially a very sophisticated video game to help practice.
Well,
so
what price of gas can't be out there every day.
And that was part of the, no, that actually, you joke, but that is part of the reason why they have less practice was a money-saving thing during COVID. They wanted the drivers out on the track less because less exposure, all this other stuff. So, yes, it was a competition that was hosted by this Gran Turismo video game. I think I have the 5th one of this game series, actually. So I have actually played it. It is pretty cool, pretty accurate. And, basically this young kid came in and became a professional driver. And it's not too unheard of. Actually, the guy who just won this past weekend in NASCAR, William Byron, he was discovered through iRacing. It wasn't like the same sort of audition tryout thing, but he
made a name for himself first in iRacing.
He became well known, and then essentially he was brought into like late model truck series, and then he kind of did what usually you have to go through to get to the Cup Series. So it seems far-fetched, but I'm not going to say it happens often, but it has happened. Yeah, in real
doesn't
life.
happen often, but it's happened more than once.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Thank
it's
you.
like that meme Dr. Doofenshmirtz. She's like, if I had a nickel for every video game player who became a professional driver, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's more than you'd think it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, big fan of motorsports. David Harbour in this movie as well. It looked very similar to Ford v Ferrari in the way the movie and the racing sequences were shot.
Yeah.
So I do look forward to that. Also coming out this weekend, Bottoms. This one's coming to theaters here. 2 high school girls who are considered not popular by any stretch of the imagination start a female defense club. This club needs a teacher liaison, and the teacher is played by, and I'm not making this up,
real
beast mode himself, Marshawn Lynch.
Yes. When I first saw this trailer, I was thinking, this is a whack movie. And then I saw him pop up, and he said more than like 3 lines, and it's like... He's actually a main character in this movie. He said
more in this trailer than he says in most of his press conferences.
Yes. And as soon as I saw him in there, I was like, I got to watch this.
I literally, like, at first I heard the voice, and then it cut to him, and I was like, no, that's not. No.
Yeah.
But I was literally like, is that Marshawn Lynch? And the site I used to kind of find some of these trailers, some of these movies, like, it has a little description as well, and usually they have who's starring in it. I'm looking, I'm like, it lists Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah. It's wild. And I like he's been in some pretty big things. Like he was in Westworld. He was in the previous season of Westworld.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it was like he didn't talk very much, but like I think he's really making the transition, and depending on how this movie goes, I think he might have a very viable acting career. At least more for the funnier comedy things. He's not going to be doing like a
I just remember seeing him do like a cameo in Brooklyn Nine-Nine one episode.
Yeah.
And they joke about how, because like one of the characters, Rosa Diaz, she's like very closed off, doesn't like to talk. And so like Marshawn Lynch is her hero because she's like, they have to like question him because he witnessed a crime, and they're like, oh, we're not going to get anything out of him. And he just talks their ear off and they joke about it. I'm wondering, is that just how he is in real life? He just doesn't like to talk for press conferences.
Oh, I agree.
I just assumed he was closed off all the time.
No, I think that's he doesn't want to. If you're like his friend, I'm sure he just goes.
That's like you.
Yeah. Well, I talk to everybody.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to talk to me, we'll chat.
You're going to be talking to him.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. Yep. Fair warning to anyone out there. Anyways, that's enough Marshawn Lynch talk. So this movie is very mature, very violent.
Yes.
It's basically High School Musical, but from the perspective of the unpopular kids and way more bloody lips.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes. It's like, I felt almost like a Karate Kid meets like that Pen 15 show.
That's a good way to describe it too.
Like
yeah.
a weird, like, okay, all right.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it too. I don't know. I just was picturing like you see High School Musical, you see all those huge dance numbers. I'm like, this is from the perspective for the people way in the back.
Yeah.
Who you can't see.
And
because they like make fun of the popular kids.
And they're
all
fighting.
That.
They're not dancing. They're fighting.
Yeah. Which in a way is kind of like a dance.
It is.
Jackie Chan, he learned how to dance before he learned how to fight. Fun fact. Also coming out this weekend, The Hill. This one's also coming out to theaters. A baseball movie starring Dennis Quaid. And no, it's not The Rookie. Although it gave a lot of Rookie vibes.
Yes.
For a second there, I thought I clicked on the wrong trailer. Yep. A boy who wants to play baseball, but he's got the swing to make it.
Yep.
But not the legs.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Born with a debilitating leg disorder. I'm sure a doctor could probably explain it better. But yeah, it's basically the leg braces from Forrest Gump.
Yeah. That's what as soon as I saw him with it, I was like, Forrest Gump.
It looked exactly like
Forrest Gump playing baseball.
But the kid can hit.
Yeah.
The real conflict of the movie, however, is, he could go out for baseball. He could try it out here, maybe even make it to the majors, whatever. But if he goes out there and runs, I mean, his legs may just give out on him one day, or he could sit on the sidelines. His legs will never go out. Yeah. So I think it's that interesting debate I feel like we all have to run into at one point or another. Mm-hmm. Do you go for it and possibly lose a part of yourself or risk something, or do you play it safe, not risk it, and maybe live a little bit longer, but is it really living?
Yep. And see, I am very familiar with that. I kind of look at my time. I played college sports, and I knew I wasn't going to the NFL. I knew that. I still wanted to play. However, that means possibility of injury, the workload that you're adding to your body that you don't need to do. You don't need to squat 500 pounds if you're a regular dude. You don't need to do that. And so, but I was that same, I decided doing that was worth playing, still being able to play. So, like, I understand, I get that question.
And I think that's such an interesting way to describe it, because I was on the other side of that coin. I also knew I wasn't going to play in college, even. So, like, junior year, I just kind of stopped, really.
Yeah.
But kind of made that other decision where it was like, to me, it's not worth it. I am going to kind of sit in the sidelines here.
Yeah.
But then I think the real lesson to be learned from that is you can make that choice. But in doing so, I started doing other activities that were more worth my time. I started doing more behind-the-scenes stuff for the drama department, which led to kind of what I'm doing here today and now.
Yeah.
And it is an interesting kind of discussion and debate, and I do think this movie will have an interesting talk with it as well.
And it's a very emotional, Disney-esque feeling.
It really does feel like The Rookie.
It does.
Like, and that's partially because it's Dennis Quaid again, but like it really does. I guess the last thing I'll say about this is I believe this was based on a true story. I think he does make it, which does kind of make sense. I mean, Babe Ruth was not a fast runner, but he didn't have to because he kept hitting home runs.
Yeah. And actually, I have to say this. It reminded me of Talladega Nights because the kid's name's Ricky. And the dude sounds like Cal Naughton Jr. And during one of the times he's up to bat, the guy goes, Ricky! And it's just like, if you watch it.
I didn't even make that connection.
It looks like,
I should have made a connection. Also, it's worth mentioning John C. Reilly, both in Talladega Nights and Days of Thunder, which I always thought was funny.
He's in Days of Thunder?
He's in Days of Thunder.
What?
He's one of the pit crew members.
Okay.
He's he's one of the pit crew members who first meets Cole.
And this dude sounds exactly like him.
Yeah.
Exactly. At first, I was like,
Ricky!
no way is he in this movie. And it's like, oh, no, it's not him. But that guy.
Could you imagine if John C. Reilly was in this movie and then we would have talked about him 3 times?
Yeah.
That would have been the record, I think, for this show.
And I still send John C. Reilly memes of him from Tim and Eric Awesome Show where he's like looking around. He likes blowing kisses. Love him. He's a great meme guy.
He's a very underrated actor.
Yeah.
Hey, we talk a lot about movies on this channel, but sometimes the ones we talk about aren't the most accessible. That's where the Marshall-Lyon County Library comes in handy. They have a great collection of physical media, as well as a couple of online services with many, many options for movies, TV shows, and documentaries. It's easy. Just get your own library card at the Marshall-Lyon County Library and gain access to their large variety of movies, TV shows, and of course, books. Also, be sure to check back every month as we here at Popcorn Bucket List make specific movie recommendations based on a monthly theme. This month, we are tackling the best ever box office bombs. So head on over to the Marshall-Lyon County Library for some of our favorites and check out the channel to get even more movie recommendations. And now, on with the show! Let's move on here. We got another movie coming out here to theaters called Retribution. Neeson's back, baby.
The dog, baby.
He's back. So by the time this video comes out, the other video won't come out. So just recently, I feel like I should mention here, we just did a Omni commentary is what we like to call it, where we reacted to the very first episode of PBL. That will be coming out this next week by the time you're watching this, so be on the lookout for that. And the thing I remember was one of our first episodes, we talked about Liam Neeson. We're talking about him again here. You can't keep Liam down.
It doesn't matter if the movie does great or terrible. He's always back.
Liam Neeson's is my, and I can't say the last word, but those of you who get that reference, get that reference. Picture the movie Speed, but with Liam Neeson.
And then a car, not a van.
And then a car.
Or not a bus.
And or a boat.
But he's got his kids with him.
He's got his kids with him, so the stakes are higher.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, basically this guy sets up this bomb in Liam Neeson's car, and he calls him, and he's like, "You have to go to this address, and you have to kill this person. If you don't, I'll blow up the car."
Yep.
Also, it's got pressure pads, so if you get out, I'll blow up the car.
Yep.
Very Speed-esque.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of rules
Speed-esque
here. And so then it turns into an action movie where Liam Neeson basically sits on a car the whole time.
Yep.
It's kind of
like Locke.
I was just about to say that.
But
with more explosions.
More explosions.
Yeah.
And not emotional, story-driven.
Well,
it could be.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
He's got his kids
Who
in the
knows?
back.
Who knows?
He's got his kids in the back.
I'm not going to put a hard, story-driven film past Liam Neeson.
Yeah. We forget, he did Schindler's List.
Yes.
He was a dramatic guy before he did one Taken movie, and we were like, give us more action, Mr. Neeson.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
So
and he's making money on it.
Yeah, and so that's why I don't reprimand Liam for doing these movies. We asked for this. We're getting what we asked for.
We actually got 3 Taken movies.
Yeah.
So like
and he was doing it for the paycheck. You could tell.
Yeah.
As I was kind of thinking about this movie, I was thinking about Taken 3, and the greatest thing I ever heard from a behind-the-scene interview was Liam Neeson said he would do Taken 3 as long as no one got taken. Could you imagine being in the room during that pitch meeting?
Yeah.
Where they're like, Mr. Neeson, glad to have you back. We got a great script here for you. And he's like, well, I got one stipulation for you, gentlemen. I have not said yes yet. No one is taken.
No one.
And they're just the writers all looking at each other like, but it's called Taken 3. No one is taken.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
That's really good.
Been working on that one for a while. All right, let's keep moving here. We got a few more to talk about. You are so not invited to my bar mitzvah. Long title. That's the whole title here. That's what's also coming out here this weekend. Coming straight to Netflix. Adam Sandler comedy.
Yep. Didn't he sign a deal a couple years ago for like 12 movies
still
or
part of
something?
that, yeah. I think it started with like that Magnificent
7.
Was it?
Magnificent
I think it was
8.
whatever one that one was. Yeah. It started with like that, and he's been doing a bunch of these Netflix movies, but I believe this is still part of that deal. But this is nepotism at its finest. I got to be honest. I got to be straight with you right here.
He's always been the guy that when he's making a movie, he wants his family and his friends in it.
As like cameos. Look,
do what you gotta do, dog.
Whatever. I don't care. It's not like because he cast his whole family in this, I lost out on the role. I'm not salty on it or anything like that. I'm just saying this is nepotism at its finest.
Yeah.
It's whatever. I'm not wrong.
You're right.
You're right. Nothing liable here. I don't care. Like I said, Adam Sandler, he's kind of a smaller role in this one. It's his real life daughter, who's playing his daughter.
Yep.
Real challenging role there.
Yep.
Who's the main star in this. Two friends hit a bit of a high school or middle school drama when middle school love triangle threatens to break them forever. And this is right before they're both going to have these awesome bar mitzvahs becoming, what is it, like 13 is when they do this?
I don't know.
I think
it could be.
This shows how much I knew. I thought bar mitzvahs were only for guys. Wow. I didn't know.
Wow.
I learned a lot from this trailer. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I learned a lot that I probably should have. It's not too crazy. Like quinceañeras are only for girls, aren't they? What's the guy version of that?
I don't know.
I don't know either. We are very cultured people.
Yes.
Oddly enough, this does also star Adam Sandler's real life wife, but she's not playing his wife, but she also has a cameo in this, playing Adam Sandler's real life wife. Try saying that 5 times fast. Okay, movie wife is Idina Menzel, who played his wife in Uncut Gems. That's possibly one of the only times I've liked a Adam Sandler movie, like really, really liked an Adam Sandler movie. So maybe that's the key?
That's the only Adam Sandler movie you really, really liked?
Okay, Happy Gilmore.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, the Uncut Gems was fantastic. Yeah. It was a great film.
That's what I'm saying, like really, really liked. Yeah. Like 100% recommend.
Yep.
Is like
all
that.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Just them two. I don't know. Middle school drama. It's as stupid as it sounds.
Yeah. It sounds like some of the jokes are going to be pretty funny though.
Yeah.
Your classic high school drama or middle school drama. Are they going to get back together at the end to be friends? Who knows? We'll see.
They will.
I bet. Yeah.
But will they? They will.
I don't know.
It's such a long title. He might as well just called it Nepotism Suck It Suckers. And we would have still watched it.
My daughter's film.
Okay, wrap things up here with the weekly preview. Let's get into the last one here. Vacation Friends 2. This one's coming straight to Hulu. Two couples who are friends go on a tropical vacation that goes wrong in all the wrong ways, pretty much. I mean, like, there's gun fights, and one of them almost drowns surfing, and there's, like, supposed to be a business deal going on. John Cena's in it as one of the couples. The first Vacation Friends movie came out only 2 years ago, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about it.
I don't know. I'm sure it's gonna be okay. This is one I'll watch it eventually, but I don't know.
It has a good cast. I like John Cena. He is funny. I don't know if this movie is too funny though. Looking,
I don't know. It's got to be one of those when you're in the right mood, it might be hilarious. We'll see.
I see. I know what you meant there. Mm-hmm. Anyways, let's wrap things up here. We've been going a little long this episode. Sorry, I've talked a lot about NASCAR. Let's wrap things up with number one recommends. Ryan, why don't you kick us off here? What do you got here?
So for my pick this week, I'm going with the indie YouTuber turned filmmakers. Talk to Me. Absolutely fantastic horror film. Very new, different idea. I thought all in all the acting was actually pretty good. Going into this film, I actually didn't have that high of expectations, but it blew me away. They used a lot of practical effects I thought looked really cool. The storyline was actually pretty good. I thought the first half an hour or so was a little bit long. Took a little bit to get into it, but obviously they're setting up the backstory. But the whole idea of like the talking to the dead, it was kind of a familiar trope, but a very new way of doing it and executing it. And I thought they did a great job. And coming from the jump from two like YouTubers who make like YouTube videos to actually making a full feature film, I thought they did a fantastic job. So Talk to Me, my number one recommend. Check it out.
It really was an interesting metaphor, at least what I got from it, because I checked it out with you, was the fact that the whole communicating with the dead was almost like this metaphor for like teens going crazy.
And like drugs,
drinking, all that sort of stuff, and the consequences from that. But it didn't seem preachy.
No, not at all.
And I think that was probably the toughest part for this movie, was to not seem like some anti-drug PSA, but to still be an entertaining movie, but still get that message across. Yeah, and I think they nailed it with that part. So, yeah, I'll piggyback on that. But I'll also give my own little quick recommend here. No real surprise. The DC Comics movie is going to come out. There's a good chance Nick's going to be recommending it. Yeah, Blue Beetle. I came into this movie with some pretty high expectations, and I'm not going to say it overexceeded my expectations because, again, they were a little bit maybe too high. That's a little unfair in the movie, but it checked all the boxes I wanted it to. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really funny. George Lopez, great to see him again. Yep. I feel like I haven't seen enough George Lopez and everything, so he was great. The character of Blue Beetle, I really, really like. I hope, and we have no idea what the future is for DC Comics here, but I hope Blue Beetle is involved in it. Boom. So, good action. A lot of good comedy there. Good recommends here all around. Good on us. I'm going to pat ourselves on the back. That was good.
Good job today.
Yeah, we did it. Anyways, that's going to do it for us here on this episode of Popcorn Bucket List. You have less than a week to check out this month's library display. And finally, be sure to head on over to the Marshall 6 Theater for the latest in blockbusters here. There's plenty to choose from. I still got a few I got to catch up on.
Oppenheimer's still around.
It's been a good summer. I feel like it's been a good summer. The box office hasn't shown it, but there's been a lot of good movies, I feel like.
Yes.
For myself and Ryan Meyerberg, I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you at the movies.